start with this.
Since we know John is coming.
Well, let's go ahead and get started because I know we have people watching online, live streaming, and I'm big on starting on time and finishing on time, and on budget. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll thank you for those of you that have shown up again here, and to everybody that's tuning in live on route29solutions.org. If you go to the panel page on the website, you'll see the link to the January 22nd meeting. You'll find the agenda, the presentation we're going to go through, and a link to a video that we're going to watch later in the meeting. So if you're watching live and you're on the page, you might want to repress the urge to click the video until later, or if not, have at it. I know at least one in the audience has already seen it because we talked to him earlier. Let's go ahead and begin with, let's toss our agenda up there, Stephen. We'll run through go ahead and click it up a little bit more. A little more. Today we'll cover our usual items that are our standing agenda items. We'll get an update on all of the Route 29 Solutions projects, and Henry really made that point last week, that let's not just always be talking about RIO. Chip, you give us an update on community assistance and the engagement committee. We will see the drive-through simulation, the first version of that I believe Karen actually asked for initially, and that will lead us into continuation of our discussion on signing. So with that, let's go ahead and go to the second slide there, Stephen, and do our introductions of the delivery panel. Chip?
Chip Boyles with the MPO and Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission.
Morgan Butler with the Southern Environmental Law Center.
Mark Graham with Albemarle County.
John Nunley with Better Living.
Brad Sheffield, Albemarle County Board of Supervisors.
Hi there, I'm Chris Engel with the City of Charlottesville, and I'm taking Jim Tolbert's place on the panel. Glad to be here.
Welcome, Chris.
Thank you.
Henry Weinshank representing Express Car Wash.
Okay, very good. And Lou?
Lou Hatter, 29 Solutions Communications Manager.
Ken Connors, VDOT District Construction Engineer.
Al Jones, Culpeper District Project Management Engineer.
Stephen Davis, VDOT ITD Central Office.
Cindy Messina, Sheet.
Dave Covington, VDOT Charlottesville Residency.
And John Lynch, Culpeper District Administrator.
Joel Denunzio, Charlottesville Residency Administrator, VDOT.
Nathan Umberger, Culpeper District Area Traffic Engineer.
Miller, would you like to introduce your companion there today?
Sure. As you know, Miller Stoddard, Sergeant of the Traffic Unit, and this is Lieutenant Mike Wagner. He's my direct lieutenant and Lieutenant of Special Operations at the Police Department.
Thank you, Miller, and thank you, Mike, for joining us. You know, Miller, while he's not a member of the panel, is a key fellow here in moving all of these projects forward and working with the county and VDOT, particularly in terms of construction sequencing and traffic control and management. Miller, I know you've been to just about every darn meeting we've had, and really appreciate it. Really appreciate it very much.
Philip, I have a 4:15 meeting, so if I get up
right
at 4, I apologize.
Well, let's finish by 4 then. We'll try for that, but that's fine. Thank you very much, Brad. On the next slide there, Stephen. Last week at the January 8th meeting, we had 35 viewers. It's been around 35 to 40 for the last several meetings. Those 35 viewers did 66 different streams. The average stream was 32 minutes long, so all that's been running pretty consistent. We have a handful of 35 to 45 people tuning in, each of them watching about 35 minutes worth of the show. The comments at the website had a little spurt that's been rather dry and sluggish. There were 13 comments submitted through 29solutions.org, 21 new posts on the website. I don't remember the exact number, but a lot of those new posts, the 21, include some back and forth responses and thank you notes. But in general, if you want to run down the list, one comment requests sidewalks at the Rio intersection and bike lanes. Well, we know the crosswalks will be there. The bike lanes won't formally extend across the intersection. One suggested that there needed to be additional through lanes at Rio. That design concept isn't changing. It doesn't need to. There are 2 through lanes in each direction on the underpass. One said they supported the package and opportunity to be involved. One suggested a referendum or Gallup poll on Rio. We won't do either one of those. One suggests adaptive signals on Route 29 similar to Pantops. We are doing that, and as we've discussed before, phase 1 of that actually kicked off in October and will be in place to help manage traffic real time during construction. One asked for the names of the shortlisted design builders, and if you may recall, it was Lane, Corman were one of the shortlisted design builders. Skanska Branch was one of the shortlisted design builders, and Shirley Contractors was the third shortlisted design builders. One, and this one really concerned me. One person repeatedly kept saying that negative comments were being removed from the website. There has not been a single comment removed from the website. And if you think the negative comments are being removed, go take a look at the website and read the comments that are on there. What I believe is happening for anybody that's interested in posting a comment at the website, you do have to log in with your own login. There's no secret password from me or from VDOT. If you have a Twitter account, you can log in with your Twitter account. If you have a Facebook account, you can log in with Facebook. If not, you can register with Disqus, D-I-S-Q-U-S, and you create your own username and your own password. But here's something that's important to remember. When you type in that little box, even though you're logged in, to the lower right of the box, it says, let's say I was posting as Philip Chouquette. Once you've finished, you still have to hit that little box that says post as Philip Chouquette. Otherwise, you'll see your typing there, but when you leave the website, it goes away. Now, this isn't meant to trick anybody. This is a standard method for public domain websites that you log in with your own login and password, and then once you read it and you're comfortable with what you said, you click post and it's on there. Now, if somebody uses profane language, if somebody makes a threat or says something absolutely rude, your comment probably would be removed, but if it were, it would say comment removed. But no comments have been removed at all, and none are going to be unless they fell outside of the bounds of good taste. To support different bypass and says Rio threatens businesses. Well, we've said before, we're not here to talk about bypasses. To suggest building the parallel roads first. The parallel roads are being delivered together as a package. Rio will open first, just like we've discussed in all of our discussions here, and respect the fact that not everybody agrees with that, but that's the game plan. To indicate hydraulic intersection needs improvement more than Rio. or instead of RIO. Again, the RIO preliminary engineering is scheduled for, those funds are programmed for fiscal 2019, currently in VDOT's 6-year program. 8 wrote in for various reasons to oppose RIO. It's an inside deal between John Grisham and Terry McAuliffe. I'm sure that's the case. 1 suggests construction will cause years of congestion. That's probably somebody that hadn't paid much attention to anything we said. 1 suggests intersection will be more dangerous. There's nothing to suggest that that's true. 1 suggests there's been no environmental study. There was. It was approved on September the 29th, 2014. We've talked about that several times here. Berkmar required a state study. That state environmental review process, known as SERP, was administratively completed by VDOT and their cooperating state agencies on September the 19th, 2014. 1 believes the governor is splitting the community, and several suggested that the intersection will destroy businesses. The long and short of it is while these comments are welcome from anyone and anyone's free to express an opinion, this isn't a vote or a popularity contest. Substantive comments are being given substantive consideration. Substantive comments have influenced the delivery of this project. Mostly those substantive comments have come from you all, and substantive comments will continue to influence project delivery. But we're getting very close to the time here where delivery is going to turn into construction in a short amount of time. If there's any question about the list of comments now, there may be some new ones since January the 19th. We've run these concurrently. We'll catch those just like we have at every meeting at the next meeting. Okay? The only real thing that we ended up with at the last meeting regarding an action item for this meeting was, and I think this was Karen. Karen's missing all the stuff here. We had given the update on the business assistance program, and I believe it was Karen that made the point that it's really important for folks to be able to make a link back to whatever the county is recommending to the city, or excuse me, the staff is recommending to the board of supervisors. So a link has been established on the project website that links back. I think currently it's just 2 documents that are on the county's website. If you look at that top row at route29solutions.org, kind of off to the right as you're looking at your screen, there are a couple of symbols. One of them is sort of a few pieces of paper that links to documents that are cataloged on the website. If you click there, Lou has rearranged those a little bit, and the first thing you'll see, am I telling the right spot? The first thing you'll see is a link to the business assistance stuff that the county is developing. So as the county continues to develop and post documents, this link will take you to them from the Route 29 website. And I thought that was frankly a good suggestion and important information that we want to make sure we help do our part to have accessible to the public. Yes. Okay. Chris, this section of the agenda was added a few meetings ago to be just sort of an open period of discussion, or a time when members could say, well, you know, in the last 2 weeks I've got this question or that question, kind of in a sense build the agenda in part for the next meeting. So it's just an open discussion period that can go as long or short as we need it to go. So does anybody have any items for?
I just had two.
Yep.
One, I just had somebody that we don't see eye to eye on this, but I know he doesn't have any kind of a agenda in pointing this out, but he just expressed concern about when you're heading southbound, the U-turn and the continuous right turn lane. Just, and he had to explain the Bullard kind of approach that's being taken so that those two lanes don't merge prematurely.
Heading northbound?
Heading northbound.
Northbound, okay.
You know, he's concerned about the safety of that. So I just want to share that concern.
Okay.
The other is, I think at the last meeting, we talked about having somebody from this panel, a business person, be involved in the development of the business assistance.
We did,
Pete,
and we,
right.
yes.
I'll be talking with Tom a little bit more tomorrow morning, but he's not quite clear on how people were looking for that to make that connection. So I just wanted to give you all an update on that, I'm going to talk to him to kind of help try to clarify that
Okay.
we all seem to be in consensus that that was a good idea. He wasn't quite sure what we were trying to achieve. So I just,
Okay.
no real discussion, just more or less giving you.
And I will say, I mean, I'm not sure whether in relation or not, but we've got Pete scheduled to attend the next meeting.
All right.
So, I mean, we've at least got him involved with it.
And remind me which panel this is.
It's actually the oversight committee. We've got him scheduled to come to the.
For the
Not-
community
not just
engagement,
come-
the committees that structure the.
Yeah, the oversight, which is what the business assistance, communications, and then the
Right.
neighborhoods committee all update. It
Right.
meets monthly, and in talking with Tom, we've gone ahead, got Pete lined up to start attending and be part of that committee.
So I guess one point, if it covers both the business engagement and the community engagement pieces, we're adding a business representative. Should we also think about adding a single neighborhood representative as well to make sure that those concerns are being addressed at the executive level or whatever that top level committee is?
My understanding was that the group just wanted to make sure that the business was there to represent or at least give input on anything that's going to have an impact on the businesses. So I don't know if that was intended to be the oversight or more or less just that business assistance discussion. But yeah, either way, I still think it's an important component. I don't know about reaching out, because can't have just one person from one neighborhood represent the neighborhoods. I don't know. It's a real gray area.
As I recalled the conversation, it was focused on the business assistance piece, but I may be recalling that incorrectly.
Yeah, let's
It
go
seemed
back to
like
our
Pete
minutes
was-
in the podcast.
Yeah, that was my understanding, that,
Yeah.
you know, for business, this is life and death. And actually, it's life and death for different business at different times. The business on 29 will have life and death after it's finished. The people on Rio, that section between Rio and Berkmar, for them it will be life and death during construction. And the question is,
I think it's fine to have a business representative. I'm just saying if we're talking about the highest layer having a business representative, and it includes neighborhoods, it includes businesses, it includes the county and the PDC.
I'm not saying that
Should we consider
you
whether
can't
there should
have
be a
anybody,
representative?
but I'm
on
just
that
trying to
committee as well?
explain the importance that people have life and death situations and also decisions to make. Do they want to go out of business? Do they want to move? Do they want to go out of business quicker? Do they want to, stay and see if they can make it? I mean, that's why you have to understand, this whole thing is called business assistance, which we really don't know what it is. There is a process being put in place, but nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows if actually local government can do anything for these businesses.
So I kind of wish Chuck and Karen and them were here too to help
Yeah.
kind of recall exactly where we were kind of steering this.
Well, we can.
So if it's okay with the panel, I can
Yeah.
just review that information tonight and talk with Tom tomorrow to
Sure,
provide some clarity.
sure, absolutely, because I know that a lot of information was exchanged with Lee and Tom, but I think
Yeah.
we can review. I mean,
I'll look
it's,
at it and I should-
yeah,
And
absolutely.
just to reiterate too, I mean, kind of remembering with the immediate focus on the business representative, each one of these subcommittees have their working groups too, such as the neighborhoods, which the police have been at every meeting,
Right.
you know, in force, the emergency services, fire departments, schools. Same thing with the neighborhoods. There's a lot of opportunity for residents and neighborhood representatives to participate at that level. I think, you know, the way we went about and went ahead and got Pete lined up for the oversight was just that emphasis, because the business topic seems to be the one most pressing at this point.
Sure.
I recall it made an abundance of sense 2 weeks ago. I just don't remember all
I'll go back.
the
It's
specifics.
not that, anybody would be opposed to have neighborhoods, but neighbors have concerns like, well, will be an annoyance getting out of my neighborhood compared to what it was before construction.
I just think it's important that we're getting their input, and if we feel like it's being they're adequately involved through the subcommittee, that's fine. I know I'm not involved with it, I'll defer it to you, but I'm just saying, if the whole structure is meant to take input from businesses in neighborhoods, and there's a sort of executive structure, I'm just suggesting we might at least consider whether there should be a neighborhood representative on that executive structure. That's all.
But I think Chip's point is, which neighborhood? I mean,
Well,
you're
which
gonna
business,
end
you know?
up having Georgetown Road
business, I can
and
give you a list.
Berkmar.
Well, I'm sure we could come up with a list of
great.
neighborhood representatives.
Let me just look at the video and stuff first before we get down this rabbit hole, because if it was more focused.
So
on businesses-
you're taking that homework.
Yes, I will update everybody
Okay,
tomorrow.
okay.
And let y'all know what we said, and then we can debate it at the next meeting.
We sat in a meeting last night with about 25 people in a neighborhood that was surprisingly well educated on facts, and it was a very pleasant discussion. I wasn't sure it was going to be, but it was a very pleasant discussion. Wait, here, I don't want to
Yeah,
dive
I'll
on
say
this. It's Brad, I just put Brad Sheffield agenda item. No, sorry, was there
People know my number.
anything else? Hey, Karen.
I don't know if y'all, I'm sorry, I apologize, there was a horrible accident at Hydraulic and 29, and the entire road was closed down,
Ooh,
which,
Anybody
if you know
hurt?
if there was an alternate route to go, you would go and let me believe what are we facing with our project.
with our project, you've been able, no, I said, well, I'm sorry, there was an accident. Wow, wow,
Southbound 29.
yeah, wow.
And so everybody was just sitting, so it's.
I saw you said that was between hydraulic and,
Intersection.
yeah, wow. Hey, Karen, I want to back up with y'all's permission, I just want to back up to that one item that Karen brought up. Karen, last meeting, you asked about a link to that business assistance information. That has been, there is a link now to it on,
Where is it? Because I have to check it today.
if you look at route29solutions.org, and up in the upper right-hand area, there are some different
Right, I
icons.
was looking at news
There's
content, frequently asked questions, I couldn't find it.
it's actually right up above there. There are some little icons, and one of them I think it's the second one from the left, quite honestly. Looks like a couple pieces of paper. And if you click on that one, it takes you to a documents page, and it should be the top link.
Okay, and because I've tried to also post comments on the page, and I have registered for it, but evidently with all my passwords, I forgot the password. So I went in to ask for it to reset my password, and it hasn't sent me an email. How long does it take for that to?
Well, that would come from, did you log in with Discuss, the DISQUS?
Right.
If you ask them to reset your password, that will come from discuss.
And that may take a while.
I frankly don't know. It shouldn't take too long. I mean, they should just send you an email. But we talked about this before you got
I
here.
apologize.
No, it's no problem. It's no problem at all. When you do have to log in with your own username and own password, but after you type your comment, be sure you hit the post button at the bottom of your comment. Let's say your username is K-Wine or whatever it might be. Once you type your comment, you say, yeah, I want this to go. There's a gray box, I believe it is, right below what you just filled in, and it would say post as whatever your username is. You have to hit that for it to post.
Right, well, I couldn't get that far.
You couldn't get that far because you couldn't remember your login.
I'm just waiting for it to send me
If it doesn't send you one soon, you could re-register with a little different username.
I tried that and it wouldn't let me. It said we already see you set up with this email address.
I mean, if you have a problem, give me a call or something, or Lou, and we'll chase that down. But that's handled by discuss wherever they are. Okay. But that link is there, Karen. So as the county updates that page with other community assistance or the business assistance information, you can always get to it from that link. Okay, thank you. Go back to 7 now, Stephen. Yes, 7. We're at 9. Go back to it. Oh, I'm sorry. That's slide 7. Slide 7. I'm sorry. Thank you. At Debbie's urging, after long last, I finally decided to quit showing you the same information on 2 of the slides because I realized, and she realized, we're just wasting a heck of a lot of paper to show the same information each time. So all of the 2014 stuff with the request for qualifications and the request for proposals, we just don't need to repeat that every meeting. But here's where we are in 2015. We're right on track. Technical proposals were received January the 6th. We talked about that at the last meeting. The price proposals were submitted January the 20th, and the price proposals were opened publicly January 21st. Asked maybe Dave to say a few things there, but I'll just say, as someone who, like you, I'm only privy to the information once it becomes public. Very pleased with the outcome. These are, I've been assured, these are solid prices. Anybody that suggests otherwise, all I'll say is I'm pretty sure they weren't in the room with the contractors when they were putting together their bids, and if that's something you've never experienced, you really don't have a good handle on what you're talking about. But Dave, if you'd like to just don't say anything you shouldn't say. But I do think you should review with them just a bit the process of the evaluations, the process of receiving the bids, the process of leading up to notice of intent.
Right. We very strictly followed our own policies and procedures, which are outlined very clearly on our website for this evaluation process. As Philip mentioned, on January 6th, we did receive the technical proposals from all 3 shortlisted offers. We have a committee, which is the same committee that evaluated the statements of qualifications that have been involved with this process from day 1. That committee reviewed the technical proposals in detail, met to discuss the evaluations, reach consensus. This is a consensus scoring process, at which time we arrived at a final score for the technical proposal evaluations. That scoring was completed. It was certified with VDOT's ASD division. They had a representative present to make sure that we
translate ASD, Administrative Services Division, the division inside VDOT that oversees procurement process.
Yes, thank you. So they certified that technical score, signed, dated, everything is then locked away. We received the price proposals on January 20th, so the technical evaluation and scoring was completed before we even received the price proposals. We did not open the price proposals until 9 o'clock yesterday morning. Yeah, yesterday, days are going by quickly. And we are still in the process of performing a responsiveness check on those price proposals to make sure that everything is in order so that we can then, in the coming days, issue a notice of intent to award as is shown on our schedule here, currently scheduled for Monday. So this kind of gives you a little bit of insight as to, we evaluate the technical proposals, we do all of that before we ever see the prices, and we open the price proposals. It's a formula, 30% technical score, 70% price that we do to then determine who is the best value offer to become the ultimate design builder. So
Those technical scores are kept. First of all, they're controlled or kept by an independent party, this person from Administrative Services Division, because you want to be sure that there's no tampering with the technical scores just because somebody sees a certain price that comes in. I believe each authorer was aware of their technical score.
No, we do not provide the technical scores to the offerers.
I think they did.
I think we received the price proposals first. That's the way it's usually. We usually receive the price proposal, and if they request their own technical score, it will be provided to them. We do not provide.
But they don't see anybody else's technical score.
And they cannot be revealed yet, the technical.
Not yet.
They're still under wraps. Yeah.
When we issue notice of intent to award, then it will all be made public as far as the scores, what the final scores were.
Are you able to tell us at this point if the technical proposals were all considered responsive?
They were all responsive, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And in fact, if one were not responsive, that would have been made known public. We would not have accepted.
You might want to define what responsive is.
Well, responsive is they have met all of the requirements of the request for proposals. If one of them, for instance, did not meet some of the criteria or did not address criteria that we requested be specifically addressed in the RFP, we would have deemed that non-responsive. We would not have accepted their price proposal, and we would have made that public knowledge at that point.
It also includes administrative responsiveness. There are certain forms and documents that have to be signed, have to be submitted. There's certain registrations that have to be maintained. If your designer does not have a professional engineer license to do business in the Commonwealth of Virginia, you could have the greatest technical proposal going, and you're probably going to get a too bad phone call from somebody. So these responsiveness checks are thorough, not only from all the Part 1 and Part 2 and addendum stuff that was in the RFP, but also to certain administrative requirements. They might be check the box in a way, but no check, no responsiveness.
Yeah, so responsiveness evaluated with the technical proposal. Well, the bids are essentially just a number.
No. We evaluate the technical proposals for responsiveness, but we also do a responsiveness check on the price proposals because there are certain items, as Phil mentioned, forms, certifications, bid bond forms that need to be submitted with the price proposal. If a offerer cannot produce a bid bond, for instance, they would be found non-responsive.
So it's mostly legal and financial.
Yes.
Now, because the bids are public And because the prices are public, really not a bid per se in this case, because the prices are public, and because some folks have written about that, there's understandable that folks would say, well, gee, at 116, round numbers, 116, 160, 190, or 116, 187, 159, whatever they were, how can these be so widely dispersed? Again, and I maybe said it a little tongue in cheek, but in all honesty, I'll say this from my own experience of having been inside a bid room. Pricing the unit items is the easy part. So many yards of concrete, you got rebar, you're doing this, you're doing that, and you have this kind of bill of goods, and you have access to all kinds of records as to what this stuff cost. And somebody is putting all that together. Then what happens is contractors say, what risk do I see here? What could go wrong? What could go wrong that cost me money? Dave Covington quits, John Lynch gets transferred to Bristol District, Ken Connors decides to become a shoe salesman, and all of VDOT staff is going to be wiped out. That's risk, and I'm going to put this much risk. When you build risk into your bid, that translates to money. I'm going to charge for that. Workload. And I'm not suggesting what went on with these prices, because I don't know. Just giving you some idea of what's going through the minds of contractors on these hours before a bid is due. How much work do I have? How tied up are my resources? If they're very tied up, well, then some contractors may add a little bit more money. If they've just won some work, they may or may not add more money. It's a real strategy issue at the end when you put your prices together, not unlike any business proposition in that regard. There's not many contractors around that do it twice, that put in a bid to lose money, so that doesn't work real well for you. So it's an exciting process, I think. It's one I kind of miss being part of in some ways. It's an exciting process as you put these strategic things at play in terms of how a bid comes together in those final hours. In the case of a design build project, and I want to mention this again because I read this comment from someone in the paper. It said that unlike design build doesn't need to be built to VDOT specifications. That is just completely false. That's just an absolutely false. Design build is a different way of procuring a contract to build a project for VDOT that meets all of VDOT's specifications, all of their standard specifications, all their special provisions, and any supplemental specifications. So there's no, the contractor gets to come in and just do what they want to do.
Send bridges, something like that.
The difference is the risk for doing the design is transferred.
I find myself explaining the VDOT standards.
Well,
federal
thank you.
standards
Thank
and
you.
stuff like
Yes,
that.
yes,
That has
absolutely.
come up, and I
Absolutely.
understand
Thank you.
more than
Thank you.
that.
So, we've had a process moving us up to this point, and somewhere between today and the next 4 days, we will either be able to put a check by that box, or or not. John, is there anything you wanted to add? You've been in and out of a lot of big projects on all sides, and
Not specifically, but I think when you look at the entire process, it certainly lends itself to getting good competitive bids, and something that, we'll see in a few days as we compare the technical scores with the price proposals, but I think everybody will be, pleasantly surprised. Yeah.
remember, this is for Berkmar, 29 widening, and Rio is what we're talking about in this design
Can you
build package.
disclose how it breaks down for the three parts of the project? Each one of the bids is, not yet?
We have requested at this time that we receive one price for the overall project.
But you will get a breakdown on them, like so much for this, so much for Berkmar, so much for
We will.
widening, so much for the grade separation.
Yes,
You will get that
yes,
bit later.
yes.
That will be public?
I believe so. We get it for the purposes of budgeting. We have two projects that are federally funded, and we have one project that is state funded. We have to track all of that.
Yeah.
You will likely see a lot of updates on the website on the 6-year plan as to how that money is settling in. We don't, at this time, have any reason to believe that our individual project element budgets are off base.
But by next meeting, you'll be able to tell us what they are, or before.
Well, I can't guarantee by next meeting, because there's a lot of things that can happen between now and the next meeting. We have to get through a protest period. If one of the non-successful offers feel they have a valid reason to protest, so that's we don't expect a protest, but we can't rule it out.
Sure.
So there are these things that we have to keep an eye on.
But I think we should be clear, and make sure I'm clear, getting those prices for the three projects will be a result of working through a process not to evaluate price A, B, and C for a decision.
Yeah.
Right. So after the contract's awarded, as a result of doing work that you need to do, we'll come to know what the general price is for each one of the projects.
And the fellow highway administration probably wants to know too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because they're going to
Yeah.
chunk back some coin every time he spends a dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I have this $64 million question, which is, no, it's 64 plus or minus a little bit. Since you have this 30/70 process in the scoring, and you have essentially a 50% difference between the low bid and the high bid, isn't it almost, unless they didn't bid completely the way they need to bid, assuming that all of that is 100% done, isn't it almost a foregone conclusion that the low bidder will be the one that gets the job?
I can probably answer that easier than Dave.
Okay, go ahead.
You're a smart guy.
Thank you.
You're a smart guy.
I was going down the same path.
You're a smart guy.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if everything is correct.
Yeah.
And everything is compliant and everything is responsive.
Because
then
of the 37.
That's
it's a
probably
different
the outcome.
ratio than
Yeah.
maybe
Right.
not.
Right.
Almost.
Right.
That's a
And I think it's important to go back to Mark's question, were all of the technical proposals responsive? The answer
Yes.
is yes.
And now I'm assuming that the bid is also responsive, and, unless they missed whatever.
I'm aware of, as is John, I'm aware of projects that have not been responsive because of missing the simplest thing.
Like,
You'd like to think that doesn't happen.
yeah, like the bond and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, the bond's a big thing, but yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an important issue. You know, this is a big deal now that we get into this point, and know what prices are, and, you know, we're spending taxpayers' money here. So it's a big deal, and to the extent that you can fill us in, considering where we are, really appreciate you doing that.
And specifically to that question, as of 2 o'clock today, we are not aware of anything that would be non-responsive to any of the price posts. We're not complete with the evaluation yet, but we have not found anything so far.
No red flags yet.
No red flags so far.
Okay, so that gives us an idea of where we're still on track here to move toward our CTB approval in February 18th, with a notice to proceed on March the 4th, or maybe sooner than March the 4th, but not later than March 4th.
Well, I think notice to proceed will still remain
On March 4th?
because of the
Okay.
administrative items.
That's right.
That doesn't preclude a successful design builder from getting started at their own risk before that date. But the official notice to proceed will
Okay.
remain March 4th.
All right. Steve? The point was made last time that we need to get some updates on all the projects, which is a darn good point, and we'll keep this on our agenda so that we make sure we're reviewing milestones where appropriate. Dave, could you give us a little update here on
Absolutely.
the projects?
Absolutely. Route 29 250 interchange project, the contract execution is on schedule. We're performing that administrative process of dotting all the i's, crossing the t's. There's usually a good little period of getting information from the contractor, filling out forms, making sure everything is correct in the contract. So that process is on schedule. We do have the first meeting with the contractor scheduled for next Friday, the 30th, and that is a pre-construction meeting, which we hold for all construction projects, where VDOT sits down with the contractor, goes over the major contract items to make sure that we're all on the same page, expectations are set, any concerns are aired at that time, and we move forward with the contract from there. So that's an important milestone for us with regard to that project.
That contract was awarded on January the 14th.
So now it's just the administrative paperwork process. For adaptive signals, the phase 1 of the adaptive signal system is on schedule. Work this week included borings at Town Center Drive, Timberwood Road, and Shoals Drive. Also, continuing this week, the installation of loop detectors, which are at signals where you have a little metal strip in there that detects whether there's a car on top of it or not. That's all weather pending. That's a temperature-sensitive installation. Going into next week, more borings further north, so between Town Center Drive and Airport Road. If you recall, we kind of started in the southern area down near Hydraulic Road, and we're working to the north. So we're on schedule for completion on time for the adaptive signals phase 1. Hillsdale Drive extended. The city and VDOT are currently executing an administrative agreement for right-of-way acquisition work for the post office property, and we are in the process of receiving right-of-way plans so that VDOT can begin the process of title work, appraisals, and continue on later in the negotiations for that post office property that we've agreed to assist the county with that acquisition.
I think Chris may have some things to add as well.
I was aware that the primary activity is the right-of-way acquisition, which will take the better part of this year, and VDOT's helping with the post office piece, which I understand is getting closer. The other pieces are being handled by a contractor, Stantec, I believe, is their name.
Is McCormick Taylor still involved?
McCormick Taylor is the design engineer,
Yeah, okay.
and Stantec folks are the right-of-way specialists
Okay.
that are helping.
Okay.
They're also doing some utility conflict resolution as part of the final design pieces.
Okay.
And-
I had a comment on Hillsdale. One thing I've been wondering all along is if Hillsdale Extension couldn't be faced a little bit, because it looks to me that there's some low-hanging fruit. When you look at Whole Foods and Seminole Square, it looks like that's something that, you know, from the logistic point of view, never mind the legal and whatever, it's something that could be done in a matter of, you know, a month or two and get started and have, you know, get up to Seminole Trail, no, it's not Seminole Trail, the main drive into Seminole Square. And you already could have a little bit more of connectivity and bypassing a heavy intersection and getting some benefit out of it, rather than waiting until
You're talking about the connection that's where the hotel is?
Yeah, right there. Right now, there's a whole bunch of earth and boulders to make sure nobody gets through there.
Well, I'll comment on that.
Yeah.
We in fact did try and do that.
Yeah.
The first piece of Hillsdale was done in conjunction with Whole Foods.
Right.
And frankly, that's the reason that Whole Foods is there. And we were able to do that quickly, and that was done with city dollars. In conjunction with the hotel being built, which just came online this year, there was an attempt to get a second piece to connect over to India Drive.
Right.
We were unable to come to an agreement with the property owner to do that. So it didn't happen, but we certainly made an attempt to do that, and it would have helped that little kind of cut through that everybody's now doing behind, in front of Kmart. But it hasn't.
So, anyway, so you don't think there's a chance to try to face that ahead of time?
I doubt it.
So what happened to eminent domain?
Still have to pay for it.
Yeah, I understand.
The question of city dollars or VDOT dollars, in some sense. So,
Well, and federal dollars too, and the issue of logical termini, you know, constructing a road, the FHWA wants to know that you're not constructing it to have it sit there for a certain amount of time, that there is a continuation, that there's enough underway, and potentially losing some efficiency from a contracting perspective of one single contract and building a larger portion of road as opposed to breaking it up. So I think all of those decisions probably collectively came together to make the decision to have one single Hillsdale extended contract to tie to the existing portions on either end.
Well, we're steamrolling some projects, and here we're kind of...
We're not steamrolling any project.
Okay.
I mean, I appreciate that's your opinion. Steamroller has a connotation that does not apply to this
I
project.
didn't mean it that way. What I'm saying is we are expediting, is that a proper term, expediting certain projects. Is there a chance that we can expedite this too? That's really all I'm saying.
Well, I think it's a similar methodology of the other 29 solutions projects where we packaged 3 projects in one design build contract to take advantage of efficiencies through a single contract or single project. Anytime you break a project into multiple segments, there's an additional layer of complexity, an additional administrative cost, managerial cost, overhead cost. You could potentially end up with 2 separate contractors building a section of road and having multiple layers of overhead costs, whereas I think the approach to Hillsdale now is go ahead and do it as a single project. Also, the evolution of 29 solutions has served to help expedite that project as well. In addition to the city and VDOT working together to find solutions to move the project forward as quickly as possible, like with the assistance with right-of-way acquisition. I think in the end, it's turned out to be an efficient process for Hillsdale Extended.
So what's the target date to put Hillsdale out for bid?
First quarter of 2016. Q1 2016, finished by October 31, 2017.
Okay, so that's still on track.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so a year from now, give or take a couple months, we'll see construction. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yes. Does that, because what I was gonna say is, did we need to spend a little time over the next 2 weeks talking about what you brought up, but that is the target, it's Q1 2016 of getting on the street.
It's on the board. I wanted to
Okay, okay.
tell you what I was
Yeah.
wondering about and what
Okay.
I obviously didn't remember what the actual dates were.
Yeah.
And it is an interesting idea, and it's one that hasn't been thought of. But also keep in mind that the plans are at a right-of-way acquisition stage, so the plans are not complete for any section of that project. So as the right-of-way is being acquired, the designer is finishing the plans, the utility relocation will start, and then the construction contract advertised, awarded, and construction.
But for that project, you have a full set of plans, right?
Not complete plans, they're
I thought I'd seen
approximately
something that looked like construction drawings.
Well, they're approximately 70% for right-of-way acquisition. They still need to be completed, all the little details, signatures for approvals before they can be advertised for construction.
And the city's still handling this, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, the city's.
Dave just seems to know quite a bit.
Well, he needs to.
Yeah, I understand.
It's, isn't that a locally administered project? That's what, so the city administers the work and takes a lot of responsibility, but VDOT can't.
We assist where we can, and one example of that's the post office right-of-way. That's a complex acquisition. The city approached VDOT and asked for some assistance there. We're glad to help with that. So. Be a collaborative process. And I guess just to finish up here, the design build projects, we already went over a lot of the milestones in the schedule, the procurement schedule. Trying to see, I think we covered pretty much everything as far as the dates for receiving the price proposals, performing responsiveness checks now, issuing notice of intent to award on or before Monday, January 26th, CTB authorization on February 18th, notice to proceed on March 4th. The overarching item here is that we are on schedule for procurement, so we've met every deadline and will continue to do so.
I think once we get into construction day, we'll want to look at these individually and be updated on what's going on Route 29, what's going on at Parkland. Okay. Chip?
Can I back up to the 25029?
Yeah.
I think we've talked about before the anticipated notice to proceed date. I'm thinking, do you have an idea of when we'll see activity? I think that's for the.
It's going to be very soon. I don't have an exact date. That's something that we're going to talk with the contractor about next Friday. But I would say within a month, you're going to see mobilization. You're going to start seeing some equipment be moved on site. They have as you're well aware, based on the recommendations from this panel, we've accelerated the fixed completion date, so there's not a lot of time to sit around and do nothing.
Our next meeting's February the 5th, probably between the two February meetings. Should be seeing something happen. Or asking why it isn't.
Yeah, and a lot of information is going to be covered in the meeting next Friday. And some of that we can probably discuss.
Yeah. If
there's anything that is a new revelation that we.
So you can update us on the 5th from your pre-construction meeting.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else on these? Okay. Item 7. Chip, are you still doing the combo update?
I can do it really quickly. In light of our earlier conversation, just to let you know, we've gotten Pete set up to begin participation with the oversight committee, and we'll massage that over how it works best for this group. They continue to meet monthly. We have changed the schedule a little bit because the way that things are happening is that the 3 subcommittees, the neighborhoods, the business assistance, and the communications, are all reporting back to the oversight committee with a both verbal and written report at their monthly meeting. And we've changed it so that we can do a monthly written schedule of activities so that the oversight committee can take a look at that and then have it available for the very first meetings of the month for both the city council, the board of supervisors, and this group. And, you know, it'll just be in a spreadsheet type format so that we can make it available to everybody here and just see public meetings, face-to-face contacts, publications, things that have taken place. Prior, we'd been meeting earlier in the month, but not in time to get that information to the elected officials in their packets for their public meetings. So that's continuing to move forward. Business Assistance Subcommittee meets again on the 23rd. One of the items is the temporary signs that I think we all shared the emails about, discussions. Continuing to look at phone apps. I think they've even asked you to take a look at a hackathon, which
I had a meeting this morning.
Yeah, what that is, but you know, continuing with that and how that could include the business community. A number of these travel apps allow advertising. You can, you know, hit a button for a business along the route, and it'll tell you how to get there. The business lane identifications, also on the agenda is the quadrant naming that was brought up at one of our earlier meetings, which I think this group thought was a really neat idea to identify the 4 quadrants around Rio, as well as continuing the review of the business assistant strategies for the presentation that goes in March to the Board of Supervisors.
Can you remind us of that schedule of this business assistance presentation to the board, or Mark?
First meeting in March.
It's the first meeting, which I believe is March 4th, if I'm not mistaken.
And that would be a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I think during the process right now, it's weighing the different pros, cons.
Okay.
You know, what are maybe the lower hanging fruit that should be taken advantage of, and things that may take longer time, that type of thing. Communications, same, you know, pretty much same thing there. Meet on the 26th. Again, looking at different social media outlets to be able to push information about the projects out. Also working really closely with Lou and taking the same spreadsheet format and combining VDOT's communications plan with the county and the city so that we know what type of activities are occurring based upon project milestones. So if we know 29 and 250 is going to start construction in 30 days, there are certain things we want to make sure are done to communicate prior to that first bulldozer going out. And so we'll have that available, and we'll make available for the PDAP group as well. And Neighborhoods Committee continues to work with emergency services, police, law enforcement, transit agencies, and putting those in touch with the neighborhood groups. You know, a whole list of different things that they're looking at, like traffic calming tools, use of message boards to get word out, either about residential neighborhood meetings, looking at the ability to change the speed limits and the fines on a temporary basis within neighborhoods. Trying to think of some of the others.
So is that more related to possible cut-through traffic?
Cut-through traffic being the concern there. The other is discussions with emergency services and maybe the need to even change staging areas for fire trucks during the 100-day period of the closure of Rio east and west. They're looking at things like moving fire trucks to a different location during that period just to make sure that might be a benefit.
So it sounds like a lot going on.
A lot.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Questions for Chip or Mark? All righty. Okay. We're going to take a look at this draft of the drive-through simulation. We got it a couple of days ago. It's just like the other draft simulations that we've looked at. It will probably go through a couple of iterations, but we wanted to show it to you for two reasons. One, because you asked for it, but two, I think it's a good prelude into continuing the discussion on signing. I think it helps get an idea in your head of what it is we're talking about signing. I am cognizant of the time, but I think we want to spend some time on this, and if we get pushed up against the clock on the signing discussion, remember, we're going to be talking about that for a few more meetings. I'm going to drive here, so Dave can just point out some things and orient us. What we're going to see is a drive through the through lanes, northbound, so from sort of Fashion Square up to approaching, almost at Woodstock. I'm back in 1969 all over again.
Maybe you shouldn't drive there.
I didn't that weekend, up to Woodbrook. And then we'll see a drive-through coming back southbound on 29, approaching 29th Place. Then we'll see westbound Rio to south of 29 and eastbound Rio to north of 29. But I'm going to kind of stagger it for a bit so Dave can kind of orient things, and then we can let it play through once. And for anybody watching, this is out on the website, right, Lou? It's under the January 22nd meeting, and if you click on it, you can watch it as many times as you'd like. So, Dave?
We'll start here. Okay.
It's right here.
All right. As you'll notice here on the, this is the east side of the road, so Fashion Square Mall is at the top of this hill. One thing I'd like to point out is the overhead sign truss structure. This is what we believe the location and what it might look like now from a conceptual perspective. Not all the details have been worked out about what might be on that sign as far as, you know, stating Rio Road and local businesses. Those elements will certainly be covered in final design. There's some safety features here, and I'm looking at it a little bit from the side that you see hanging down. There's a green arrow, red X system that's planned for this as the category of a depressed roadway and minor tunnel. That these are safety features that need to be included. Also, in the median here, we haven't gone in and shown locations for trees, so this is just conceptual level. We haven't included all those details yet. We do have requirements in the RFP and subsequent contract for landscaping and vegetation. So this, again, being kind of a representative of the conceptual design. So,
but at this spot on 29, it's just like 29 is today.
Yes.
I mean, the grade, the elevation. If you were driving there today and you looked out your passenger window, that's what you would. This is what you would see. Hopefully, if you're driving, you're doing more looking straight than out the passenger window. But
this is kind of a mill and overlay, which would normally be done on a lot of roadway projects. So we're not changing grade. Visibility is the same as it is today.
We've passed through the intersection at 29th and are approaching what will be right out entrance to Fashion Square Mall.
Yeah, I understand this is preliminary, so if I may comment just on the graphics, the median here appears to be narrower than it really is. It's like 26 feet or something, and the trees are missing, as you pointed out.
Right. Well, I mean, again, this is based on the conceptual design. So what we've looked at up to this point.
So the median would have been narrowed down at this point already?
No, at this point, the median is
It's a current median
width.
So visually, it appears narrower than what.
The far left southbound lane, that's not turn lane into Fashion Square, so that
Correct,
way it is
correct.
a
Right.
little bit narrow.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I was singing the same.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so we'll head north a little bit, toward the underpass. Okay, Dave, why don't you tell them what's starting to happen?
Okay, so now we're getting to the lane split where the through traffic is in the left 2 lanes, the local traffic is in the right 2 lanes, and we've got a pretty good distance here for people to make decisions. We see this a lot at interchange ramps on the interstate where there's a decision area where people make a mistake, but they should be, if they've decided that I don't need to stop at Ryer Road, I don't need to stop at one of the businesses, I want to continue through, then by this time they are in the through lanes, local traffic is in the local lane, so everybody has accomplished the split at this point.
As Henry pointed out, I think you confirmed, there's a bunch of trees right now in the middle there. Most of those are remaining.
Well, what doesn't remain, I mean, obviously, we have a provision in the RFP, and keep in mind that the RFP becomes part of the contract, so everything that's in there for landscaping throughout here. But for now, we didn't want to try to match exact tree locations or anything like that. We kind of kept it open, but there will be vegetation, street trees or low shrubs or a combination of the 2 in the median area.
The grade that's starting to change here is the through lane, not the local lane.
Well, and the grade has not changed yet at this point where the vehicle is sitting. The
Right.
grade won't really change until you get up near this barrier wall.
Let's go into the
And so the grade has changed now. We can see we've got this open, this is a MB27 barrier wall. I say MB27 because anybody who's looked at that VDOT standard will be familiar with it.
So this is one of the recommendations that you all talked about, not having a standard median barrier on top of those walls,
yeah.
but something you can see.
Something open, yeah.
Yeah, continue a little further down and we can see more of the aesthetic treatments on the retaining walls. Okay, that's probably good there. So now what we've got is we can see the retaining walls in here with the aesthetic treatments and the pilasters and the lighting on top of the pilasters. Also the MB27, it has a concrete wall component as well as the metal rail. So that would have an aesthetic treatment on that, almost serving as a cap to the wall. But this is, you're in the through lanes now. We can see the bridge ahead, the aesthetic treatments on the facade of the bridge, also the green arrow, red X here as well. And then we can see the landscaping, the vegetation on top of the bridge. Also this truss structure that suspends the signals, this was only a concept. It was not a requirement in the RFP, so we may see in the future some different concepts as far as more traditional light poles, or who knows, maybe we end up with a truss, but that's obviously part of the input that will come from this panel.
Can you refresh our memory on, from the bridge, either direction, north or south, what is the distance of that wall, not the height, but how long is the travel? Because it looks a lot longer to me in looking at this than what we're actually working within that road area. It's not a large road area.
Yeah, if I remember
I know
correctly.
maybe the perspective of this, but what the, or the total distance of it from beginning to end, how much expanse of wall do we have?
If I remember correctly, it was approximately 1,800 feet total length of wall. It's a little shorter distance on the north end than on the south, so it might be 900 or 800 feet to the south, and more like 500 or 600 feet to the north, and then you have the width, so to speak, of the bridge. All that's kind of subject to change as we get into a final design based on the design builder's unique design. It may get a little shorter. I don't anticipate it getting any longer. We're probably looking at the maximum length here. But I think, if I remember correctly, the total distance was approximately 1,800 feet.
Not including,
Including the bridge.
including?
Including.
Okay.
Yeah, including the underpass. which is about 350 of the 1,800. The conceptual.
That's from the beginning of the wall on the south end to the end of the wall on the north end, everything in between.
Yeah. So now we go underneath Rio.
You can see we've got lighting on the, within the bridge. See, this side seems a little shorter, which is representative of the conceptual design.
And that's due to the grade, the existing topography out there today.
So now we come out of this and we have the merge area where the through lanes are gonna merge back with the local lanes. Our raised median again, which we haven't shown the trees in there, but certainly this would be subject for a lot of landscaping opportunities there. The end of the wall, this is a standard wall end treatment for the MB27 type rail. We see off here to the right, this is the entrance is just back.
Right.
In fact, if you backed it up a couple seconds, you see that, you don't have to.
I don't think you can see it too
You'd
well
see the
here.
entrance.
Yeah, you see it better on the other one.
The exit from Alamo Square.
Dave, can you explain the break in the median there? Is that for emergency vehicles? Or
It's
what?
not, and this is a design component. What we don't want to do is run a raised curve all the way down to this crash cushion here, because there's more potential for a vehicle to get airborne, or not necessarily, in the air, but impact the attenuator, the crash cushion, in a way that it wasn't designed to do. But those areas are not specifically designed as a turnaround point or for emergency
So
vehicles.
there'll probably be additional markings on the pavement, kind of
Yeah.
hash lines or something.
Yes.
Make sure people don't think. they
Well,
can turn.
and again, we haven't shown every little detail.
I understand,
We would have an
I understand.
inside
I'm just-
lane marker that would come down.
I asked him the same thing before we.
Yeah, no, it's just,
Yeah.
because I know that this is preliminary, we'll be working on it. I want to make sure that I didn't misunderstand.
And I think, we've been rather liberal with the amount of space in here. This.
No, I understand the physics of why you want to not have a raised curve there.
We may pull this back a little bit more to ensure that we do not encourage the ability for a vehicle to try to make a U-turn.
Yeah, some painful.
Or to make a left turn, which was what scared me much.
Well, right.
Right, absolutely.
What do you mean I cannot get to, what is it, Almer Square? No, yes.
Yeah.
Make the turn.
No right turns here, no left turns here. Just, you gotta wait till you get up here for that.
So that signal in the distance is Woodbrook, and this will fade out before we get there.
I believe that's the back entrance to Alamo Square,
That's
and then
the
Garden
Garden
Boulevard.
Right. So the entrance to the little gym, Thai 99 off of Gardens Boulevard is exactly like it is today. It'll be that way during construction. It'll be that way after construction.
Okay.
I just named those two because those are two I know of.
Can I make a comment? That car that's in the second lane from the left.
Is here?
Yes, that car. That better doesn't decide he wants to go to a little gym. Because
No,
that-
he should be in the local lane.
He should be. I understand. I
Right.
understand he should be.
That's why the signing discussion
Yes.
is important.
Yeah, I mean, that's a danger.
You don't see any of the signing we've talked about reflected in here, but that's a perfect
preliminary.
point. It's a perfect point, Henry.
What we're gonna see in just a moment here, all right, now it's gonna flip around, it's gonna drive the same distance southbound
South.
on 29, and it'll travel through the through lanes, so
So
now
now
we're
we're heading
looking.
south.
Yeah, now we're looking south. You can see all the entrances that exist today will continue to exist in the future. We see the through lanes, again, on the left, the local lanes splitting off to the right. We see the development of the dual left turn lanes here, so that's why you see such a wide split, and then the turn lanes develop as a result of that.
The intersection you show there is Myers Drive. Can you back a little
Yep.
bit?
Stephen showed me how to do this.
Just
Not a Mac.
Yeah.
I don't believe, going forward.
You went too
Too
far back.
So we're looking north.
Yeah.
Yeah, just let
Well,
it-
it'll flip around real fast here. This is still going toward Woodbrook.
Yeah, there you are.
There you go.
That is,
Right.
yeah.
right there.
So obviously, that's Myers Drive.
Yes.
And there again, you have to make sure that somebody getting out of Myers Drive doesn't decide he wants to go through the true lanes. So you need signage and maybe something else before somebody,
Well, and that's part of the
Does it?
decision, that solid line right there, as you know, when you're driving on the road, when you cross a solid line like that, it's illegal. When you cross a dash line, it's legal, so.
the point I'm making is the solid line may have to come back a little bit more and may even have to be a double line or something
You mean come back, like towards us?
towards our.
Yeah, and I mean, again, this just being a representative of conceptual design.
Again,
If you recall, in the conceptual plans, it does extend back a little bit beyond their entrance.
Yeah, I'm just critiquing the preliminary graphics, not what you're planning to do. Just what
Sure.
you need to make sure you incorporate before other people will ask
Right. And would
these
there have to be
questions.
signage for whoever's coming out of Myers Line to say, local lane access only, right turn?
Yeah.
So that they're not trying to shoot out across everybody.
Somebody will try.
Lots of people drive.
And one thing you can see here, and it's even more prominent, keep an eye out for it when we watch the video through again in the northbound direction, but you can see the retaining wall on the other side here. You can see clear through this structure. So you're not entering this dark enclosure, in the daytime. It is lit. It's lit at night. It's going to have photovoltaic cells to determine when the light should be on. But even at 350 plus feet, you can see through this structure. You see what's on the other side.
Talk a little bit about the grades.
At this location, generally the grade is the same as it is today. The grade on the local lanes does not change throughout the entire project, except maybe just a little bit, just for pavement overlays. All the entrances are in the location that they are today. They'll be maintained during construction, to be open during business hours, as well as every entrance that exists today will be there after
Dave,
construction.
help me out. Are the curbs and the sidewalks at the same spot where the curbs are now, or are the curbs moved out some distance?
Move out away from the road. Yeah, there's a
From
little
the
bit.
center line, away from the
There's a
center.
little bit of widening that occurs,
There is.
as you saw in the conceptual plans. I'm sure you've looked very
Well,
closely at that.
Okay, I wasn't sure anymore if they were staying exactly where they're now, if they're actually moving. They are actually.
There are some locations where they are staying, where they are generally in the up in this area where the SunTrust building is because of the retaining walls.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
Right. We don't want to rebuild that retaining wall. That would be.
But in other places, they may move within the right of way, but 5-10 feet.
Yeah, and
as
there's
necessary.
little slivers of right-of-way that we're having to acquire, because what we have to do is we have to make room for this structure.
Yeah, that by itself takes the equivalent of a lane, pretty much.
That retaining wall structure is part of what we discussed several meetings back.
Yeah.
That that wall, with the exception of the face of the wall,
Yeah.
will be constructed outside the 103-day period.
Right. Constructed at night, top-down construction techniques, very innovative. We saw a lot of innovation.
I guess I'm presuming that's still the case. I don't
Yeah.
know. You know better than me.
Yeah, I mean, that's the method that.
Essentially, it will be buried at night and uncovered
Opened up for the morning.
when the 104 days starts.
That's correct. So that they have all that structure, all those structural elements in place before that summertime 103 days, so they can maximize the use of the time. Get in, get the work done, get out, get it open back up to the traveling public.
Going back to the lighting that you mentioned under the bridge,
Yeah, you want to go ahead and advance it?
I think I've seen it elsewhere where the lights, there are more lights turned on during the day than at night. The reason is the contrast. That
Yeah.
your eyes have to adjust to a different foot candle level.
Right.
So you have to have more lights at night, during the day, as strange as it sounds.
That's possible, and obviously that's part of the design process where a lighting engineer would design the lighting system, and that's a very good point. When you drive from a well-lit area into a darker area, your eyes can't adjust quickly enough. So the idea here is to kind of balance the light under the bridge with the ambient light outside of the bridge.
It's particularly true in longer tunnels where the lighting gradually introduces your eyes to the.
Well, there they taper it, actually.
Yes,
One tunnel,
absolutely.
under
And,
the-
and you see here, obviously daytime, and these lights are on to provide some light there. But you see here, you haven't even entered the bridge yet, and you can see on the other side, you can see sky, you can see vegetation, you can see the retaining wall. It looks even better from the other direction because here you're on the inside of the curve, whereas coming from the other direction, you're on the outside of the curve.
And again, because it's preliminary, would there be signage, directional signage across the top of the bridge or, for the
well,
traffic, through traffic? You know,
we
to
have-
let them know what's coming up, where to turn, or where would that
Possibly.
signage be as they're heading?
VDOT has got a policy now of not hanging signs from bridges anymore like we used to do. It's just not really a great practice, but directional signage throughout this entire corridor being part of the final design to help people figure out what lane do I need to be in, if I'm going to, if I'm turning on Rio Road, if I'm turning into Hardee's, if I'm going to Wendy's, where do I need to be? And that's part
What
of
I
the
think
design.
we can do is use this video as sort of a palette. Because remember, once the contractor is on board, the contractor needs to be here frequently with us. And as we continue our discussion on signing, we may be able to use this video to say, oh, okay, here's how this would look. Here's where they would be located. VDOT's not going to be able to put a sign everywhere. But as we discuss and agree on sort of templates for signing and general locations, we can use this to help see how that's going to look. And I think that'll be valuable, and I'm hoping the designers and contractors will help us make that
And
valuable.
there's a couple of opportunities here. Obviously, we want to alert drivers of where they need to be based on where they need to be going well in advance of by the time they're in this situation. Now, if they have chosen to use the through lanes to make a left turn at the southern entrance to Fashion Square Mall, there should be a supplemental sign beyond this to say, okay, you picked the right lane, you've gone under the structure, now make the next left turn at the signal, and you'll be entering Fashion Square Mall. Similarly, for the local lanes, if they wanted to be turning right at 29th Place or somewhere north of that.
The interesting part here is we have two sets of through lanes. We have the through lanes, and then the through lane on the local lanes to access facilities that are still on 29, but need to be accessed by the local, through the intersection. Popping out the other side.
So this area in here, as we get into this median area, this is where you might see some directional signage for local businesses or advanced notification of, what's the next street coming up. Fashion Square Mall Drive and 29th Place.
That's 29th Place is the signalized intersection.
The next signal you see in the distance there.
But this will peter out before we get there.
And then we see the merge coming together. So, in theory, this vehicle here could make a lane change and turn right, or make a lane change and turn left, or continue straight on.
That starts the left turn bay there, right?
That right there is the left turn bay for Fashion Square And then coming up, what we're gonna see is, westbound traffic, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just saying, this is a better shot of the left turn.
Okay, so now we are westbound Rio approaching the intersection, and this is gonna be a left turn movement onto 29 southbound. Again, I mentioned the truss structure. This is probably one of the best images we've had to date of what this potential truss structure might look like with the signal heads on there. Again, this is not a requirement of the RFP. The design builder is free to choose some other method that they might feel would be better or more appropriate. And again, we have the ability at this point to make some input on that. So this is approaching the intersection here. This is the Hardee's on the other side of 29. So we want to run this a little further.
Wait for the light to change.
And you saw that the crosswalks are shown here and the ped signals.
So now it's just heading south.
So you just saw, we just passed another crosswalk there. So this is what the MB27 rail would look like from the local lanes. And this is all at the grade that 29 is at right now. So all of these entrances would be just like they are today. Well, it might be a little bit of improvement with the sidewalk and the curbing and things like that, but grade-wise, they're all the same. And then now we're approaching the merge of the through and local lanes, 29th place signal here.
So where was that right at the end?
That was approaching the 29th place signal on southbound 29.
I just wondered which building. Is that strip mall before the,
Yeah, I'm trying to recall exactly which business is it. No,
I think the Starbucks is the one you just passed, right?
yes, yeah, the strip mall there.
So whatever just south of that.
So this is,
I think that is the Starbucks.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I
Yeah.
think.
right here?
Right, okay.
Yeah, I think that's the Starbucks, that little strip mall with the, does it have mattress?
The next building, I guess, is the deli.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I apologize, I get a lot of distortion looking at it from this side, it's kind of hard to tell. So now we're on Rio looking east and going to make a left turn on the 29 local lanes heading north on 29.
So this is Merchant's Tire over here.
Yeah, Merchant's Tire and Hardee's would be on your right. This over here, across the street is the SunTrust building, Ashland Square Mall off to the right.
You'll see the free right in the bollards that we talked about earlier here.
Yeah, you see the free flow right movement as vehicles are going through that. Light turns green. And then you see the bollards there that'll separate the right turn traffic from the left turn traffic, so we don't have people competing for a lane. And we've got Albemarle Square is on the right. There's the entrance to Albemarle Square there. Very similar to what it is today, but it becomes a right in, right out as opposed to that signalized intersection. We've got it channelized so nobody can try to drive across and make a left. Again, this is the same scenario that we saw from the through lanes once you get to that merge.
Now we're back to the beginning.
We
We'll
just
let it play through?
Yeah.
Well, no, wait, we're at the end.
No, we're back at the beginning. So northbound 29, entering into the through lanes.
distance there. We don't quite get up to that left turn lane, I don't think.
No, not quite. And this is all, again, the video is generated based on the same conceptual design as the flyover videos and the renderings. The traffic comes from the BISM traffic model. So it's all consistent with what you've seen so far. It's just a different perspective. Approaching 29th place signal. And Rio westbound, 29 southbound. Probably noticed there was a section of sidewalk that was green. That was actually just a coding error. There is continuous sidewalk through the entire project area. And Rio eastbound to 29.
Is there a more attractive substitute for those bollards?
It's something we can look into. I'm not particularly aware of one because they have to be breakaway. It has to be something that if a vehicle...
I think there may be, they need to be something that Joel's going to want to look at a lot, because he'll be replacing pretty much.
They do get beat up. So
They get
bad.
beat up pretty bad. But, I think we ought to do like we did with the railing. We really made an effort to look for some open-faced railing that met safety requirements. We ought to do the same thing. Have things move forward with the contractor, and then do the same thing for us.
Sure. I mean, we can certainly look for any options.
Those things are essentially rubber pipes, right? Those valves. There's something I've seen in Europe, I don't know if it exists this side of the ocean, which is essentially like half of a chrome soccer ball.
Right.
And, you don't want to hit those. You see it, you stay away from it. But if you go over, you won't destroy anything. It's still there.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Have you seen it?
Yes, absolutely.
I wonder if those are legal.
I don't know.
With VDOT.
That I don't know.
Well, we tend to adhere to federal standards. We've
Yeah,
got some
well,
road standards of our own.
Maybe they're not in the federal standard.
I'm not sure they're
Acceptable
not.
measures.
I mean, we need to just take a look and see what some of the options are.
I should say the two things that I know need to be there, the color and the reflectivity at the top. Now, other things that still include those two items, because they either have to be the white or the yellow based on the line color. They have to be similar to that, plus they have to have a certain amount of reflectivity. Other than that, we can look at what can...
Yeah, let's just look and see. And
Those chrome things, they're essentially indestructible, and they're very low, and you can drive over them. And essentially, it's a chrome hemisphere.
Okay, well, we'll look and see. It's 3:20. I think we should go back and just look through our signing photos that maybe will help us kick off our meeting on February the 5th. Nathan had to leave.
He gave me a quick crash course.
Oh, okay, Joel's the guy. But we've got some pictures in this order in your book. One of the things you'll see in your book on page, which I see I clearly covered up again, Henry, after page 11, is a general layout of entrances that Nathan's team has identified. So they start to know where are the entrances that need to be addressed. That's more just for information at this point. It makes the point that there are a lot of them. What we're going to look at now then is some examples, and some of them you'll have to use a little imagination, of work zone temporary signing that VDOT currently uses. Go ahead. You kind of forget all this stuff that comes along with the pictures. These signs you're familiar with probably in construction areas. They're orange background with black letters, is that right? Orange background with black letters. We'll see another example of, a couple more examples of these, but these say business open and list the name of some businesses. Here are another couple examples of signs that can be used during construction. That would be the black on orange. That also lists the name of some businesses. And here's an example of something that I couldn't quite get from Nathan. Is this something you've already established or a spec you're working on?
This is the current VDOT spec for the signs
Yeah.
we're just looking at. The ones with multiple businesses, those are actually taken from a Pennsylvania spec. So we're going to have to basically use this look and be able to use the Pennsylvania kind of footprint for what names we have on there.
But these are all temporary signs that would be used, or examples of what we could use during construction.
Is there relevance to these colored markings on
Yeah, I
this
wanted to
map?
ask that question,
And if there's
too.
a
Yeah, the
budget for
diamonds are
that?
the locations of the business,
No, the
and
color
the
coding.
circles are that business's entrance location, where these signs would possibly be located.
Diamonds, the business, and
Yeah.
the circles, the.
So the color, all the
entry
color
level.
corresponds.
Oh, okay.
I think there's larger.
Oh,
larger
yeah, my
printouts.
bad. What did I do with those? They're under my hat. Here, so you don't have to break your eyes. so
Yeah,
bad.
well, yeah, that's fine. I'll be thinking over it.
That's a little bit easier to look at. That's a little bit easier to look at. And then we have some examples. There is a link that I threw in there for you. If you're looking online at the presentation, you can click on that link and go to it. That just gives you some overall explanation of VDOT's current signing program. But now we're going to look at some examples of what could be permanent signing, and I'm not sure where all Nathan got it. North Carolina, I think. He found a couple of examples of this quadrant signing. I can't remember. I think everybody's here this week that was here 2 weeks ago, but one of the things we talked about was maybe kind of branding the quadrants that could be used not only for directions, but that could start to be incorporated into businesses' marketing materials in those quadrants. So we're going to look at 2 examples of a concept that's, well, one example of the concept, a picture of one that Nathan just took off of Google Maps in North Carolina. We're going to look at what the logo signs look at, and then it's not the greatest picture in the world, but it's a Google Street View of a tourist-oriented directional sign that's out on Rye Road East now for Jimmy John's. I didn't realize it was out there. But this is an example of, I'm not sure where this is from. I don't believe this was North Carolina. It doesn't matter. But this is an example of some signing that has a bit of a branding feel. to it that has been used in different areas with different patterns. This more, is that more the traditional color pattern? That's green, right? I'm asking Dave. Dave sees colors as good as I do. So, but here's an example where there's a sign with some distinctive branding on it. Go ahead. Here, I know this is just a street view map. Ignore this. That just comes from Google Maps, I think, when you're trying to outline a route or something.
Yeah, that's North Carolina.
This is North Carolina, and I know it may not be the clearest picture, but still, it's just an example of some signing with some quadrant branding to it. Go ahead. Henry, you asked a lot about the logo signs. This is sort of the traditional setup for the service signs or logo signing, where there are so many allowed logos on the sign that have to meet certain requirements. I don't remember what all those requirements are, but hours of service and distance from the intersection. But there's just some example of what those templates look like. And then the last one again is the street view from Rio East. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure exactly where this is on Rio East, but it's one of the Todd signs for.
It's 29.
Is that 29 North?
It's right in front of Woodgrove.
East Rio Road, right? My bad. Right. Okay. So this is telling you that on East Rio Road, you can take a right to Jimmy John's. So it's just an example, some examples of the type of things we can continue to discuss. I do think it's going to be important for us to discuss them with the design builder, and then be able to see what would they look like on our project. On our project.
Going back a little bit to the Lotus thing, where I suggested that maybe we could have a scaled down version of what's done on the interstates, because you don't have to necessarily tell them which exit number, because there is no exit number.
Right.
And also on the interstate where you're going at 70 miles an hour, they have to be whatever, 500 feet apart. But when you're going at 45 miles an hour, they obviously can be closer. They can be maybe 100 feet, 200 feet. So I'm still looking at, can it be scaled down to what we're doing?
And I think that we could also consider something like that that's scaled down that could still work with a quadrant program if we wanted to go that route. Those are all of the examples we have, and what I would like to suggest is that maybe we just bring this agenda item forward to February the 5th and not clutter it up with anything in front of it, and we'll spend our time just talking about this a little bit more and starting to get a little sharper pencil on some of our suggestions, and maybe have someone here, depending on how things are going with your evaluation. But I didn't want to put him on the spot while he was here, but we had one of our audience folks is the person who is the lead designer for the apparent low bidder, whatever the right word to say, is from their design team. And I think we're going to, assuming all of that moves forward, we're going to want to start working more closely with them and make sure they're in room with us as we're talking about some of these items. But I got to hand it to Nathan. He's done a good job of pulling together some information for us with a good open mind, and not we always have to go back to
to what we're allowed to do, but sometimes that box is a lot bigger than you might think at first in terms of what we're allowed to do and allowed to consider.
Phil, is there any issues or concerns about signage on the private property side of this, given that there's pretty much tight right-of-way? Are we going to have any limitations with putting signage on private property?
I don't think VDOT puts signs on private property.
You're talking about signs that those stores may put up on private property. Will VDOT have any problem with private signs?
Well, that sign right there is in the VDOT right-of-way, I would assume, given.
Well, I think this is part of the Todd's program, yes. So if.
But as we get closer up to the intersection, it gets tighter, and I would imagine that as we look at signage, possibly going to run into situations where that's cropping up on private property. I don't know if y'all have considered where we can't put visual signage, where there's limitations for that.
We always have the flexibility of permanent easements as well. That's something we have discussed. With the conceptual plan, we have obviously not determined where all the sign locations are, and we've made decisions that we'll have permanent easements where it makes sense to do that.
But absent an easement, I wouldn't anticipate VDOT placing a sign on private property.
All right. Just want to make sure we're not
Yeah.
setting our expectations one way and our limitations the other something.
Yeah.
I was going to say, one of the things Nathan is also meeting with, part of this team is there's members from the county there who's looking at the sign ordinance in the county, and they're actually having a follow-up meeting tomorrow to discuss about how the business location signs.
Yeah, and I have not spent enough time myself looking to see how this dovetails with what the county might do in terms of signing ordinances during a construction period. If I understand correctly, that's more geared toward what a business might do with their sign.
Yeah, right now,
Yeah.
the primary focus is on temporary signage. And
Yeah.
staff is the board hasn't directed us to work on an ordinance change, but we are trying to, ahead of that, make sure we've got some good material to pull together, so if they go that direction, we're ready to roll.
I know I'm being redundant, but I'm a fan of redundancy. I'll just say that on another project, it worked very well where a single ordinance was passed by a locality that incorporated a construction signing program, actually a little bit late because it resulted from there being some complaints, but we caught it early enough that we put this ordinance in place in a locality so that moving forward, as construction scenarios changed, and well, this lane's closed, now this lane's open, everybody knew what the deal was in terms of how temporary signing might change with it, both from the project point of view as well as the local business. It worked out well.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time looking at various alternatives for that.
Yeah.
How do you build into flexibility so
Yeah.
those variations can be administratively handled?
Right.
You don't have time to go revise.
That's right,
it
yeah,
again.
yeah. What had happened in the early stages of this project is by the time you got agreement on what to do, well, the project had moved on and it didn't matter anymore. But if it's okay with you all, can we kind of take this agenda item, move it up to the front of February 5th? I'll talk with Nathan in the meantime, see if we have any additional information to discuss. Maybe we can ask somebody, depending on where you are, from the design build team to be here with us on the 5th, if that's appropriate, only if that's appropriate.
They're obligated after March 4th.
I know, but let's just see where things are. It'd be good to help with this discussion a bit. Does that sound okay? Okay, thank you. New business and wrap up. I did have a meeting with someone this morning
from the Open Data Institute, which is a kind of national, international group of folks dealing with open data. And I learned a lot about 4 sources for the issue of helping tee up apps that already exist for directions during construction, and involves coordinating with 4 different organizations. FHWA is one that has some new requirements for state reporting that I'll get with Morali on and get a better understanding of. Open Streets, which is a source of a global source of collecting information and pushing it out to apps like Google Maps or Waves or whoever it might be. And then there's Google Maps themselves and Apple Maps that I know VDOT already has an association with, that we could actually tee things up. I think one advantage we have for the biggie, the 103 days, is that we know where the businesses are, we know where the entrances are, and we have what will be a relatively static maintenance of traffic scenario for that 103-day period. And during that time, we should be able to tee things up so that anyone that's anywhere and wants to get to some place inside that intersection will be routed the most efficient way for them to get there, whether it's 29 South to Berkmar or 29 South to Hilton Heights to Berkmar to Rio, whatever it might be. So I'm going to follow up on that a little bit more. But I also want to follow up a little bit more on what commercial possibilities there might be for businesses. And that I just need, I need to chew on that a little bit more. The state's not able to support purely commercial interests, but is there some way in connection with the upload and providing the information, let's say, to one of these organizations that lets a ABC company advertise? I just don't know. I'm not smart enough about all that yet. This guy I talked to this morning is real smart, and clearly someone who I got the impression that knew that he was willing, to a point, he was willing to help us a lot. He's from here, has an interest, and turns out is, not unaware of what we've been working on here. So I'll continue to chase that down. Any new business from anyone here? Wrap up? John?
I'm good.
Wrap up? Brad?
I'm good.
Chris? Welcome again.
Thank you. I'll just mention, since we're talking about roads all this time, there's going to be a road opening, an interchange opening next week on 28th, so welcome to come out to that. McIntyre.
All right.
John Warren
Good for you.
Parkway.
Good for you.
A long time coming.
Good. Good for you. Karen?
Well, I apologize, I missed it at the beginning, so this may have been covered. Is there some email communications regarding suggestions on ARB, guidelines for signs from Neil Williamson? And my understanding in his email, because I know there's different exchanges going on, that it wasn't just regarding temporary sign guidelines, but also, my thought even was going forward with permanent signage, since that is an entrance corridor, what the guidelines would be. And so I didn't know if any of that had been brought up among the group, or was only communicated through those emails.
Just what was exchanged in those emails as far as this meeting goes. That
is something that, because I think you responded, but your response was towards temporary signage, and I know he did give an example of temporary signage in Gainesville, but I think reading the gist of what he was talking about, it could apply to temporary and permanent signage, and that would be something I think of great interest, especially with our business assistants, because even looking at the drive-through, which was beautiful, I can tell that driving through it myself every day, the perspectives are a little bit different, so I'm gonna really study that, because it looks like, as I was asking, the length, it looks like there's a longer from the drive-through of what in reality there is. I think we're gonna hit that wall sooner than what that's showing when you're driving through. So the signage piece definitely for, again, the marketing of businesses is huge, the visibility. So not just during the construction period, but what the guidelines are going forward for long-term and permanent after the construction is completed.
Well, Mark, is it fair to ask you just to keep us updated
Yeah,
as staff?
that would be fine, because that is one of the things that is on the board's long list of possible things to consider, so.
Okay.
And when are they considering this? Again, I'm trying to find it, like, trying to hunt down and find when the assistance programs and trying to get all that. It's difficult, because I'd like to be able to communicate that to our retailers, so what is going on.
That's fine. I'll provide the updates on that.
Okay, all right. And thanks for pushing us on the drive-through video. Thanks.
Apologize.
Okay, Brad, thanks. Henry?
We got a lot of good information today, so it has been good from a point of view of information.
Okay, thank you. Chip? Morgan?
She's saying the drive-through is a nice tool. I think it will be useful as we continue the signage discussion. So thanks for moving that so quickly.
Well, Dave pushed on his folks, and they did a good job. We really appreciate them turning that around. Because even in the age of technology, nothing is easy as you think it is. But thanks very much. Karen, if you have any problem with that website, please be sure.
I found it when I got on here, but
Okay.
there was something was running right on my phone.
Okay.
The landing page wasn't even coming up right now.
Okay. February 5th? February 5th? February 5th, next meeting. See you then. Take care. Thanks, Steve.